Okay, so we've got the idea that with a particular piece of artwork, we have like a public make believe game that everyone can play with it. But then each of us individually can create our own little games of make believe that have their own fictional worlds that we play with these pieces of art. So if you think about the piece of artwork that is the Harry Potter movie, for example, I don't remember which installment this is. In any case, in the public game that we play with this piece of artwork, it is fictionally true that Dumbledore dies. Everyone who engages with the Harry Potter movie plays a game of make believe in which it's fictionally true that Dumbledore dies. But you can play your own private personal game with that movie, in which it also becomes fictionally true that you yourself are sad that Dumbledore dies. So in that case, it's not true that you're sad about Dumbledore's death. Instead, you're playing a game in which it's fictionally true that you are sad about Dumbledore's death. In just the same way that it's not true that Dumbledore is gay, for example. After all, Dumbledore does not freaking exist in the first place. But you can play your own fictional make believe game with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, in which it is fictionally true that Dumbledore is gay. So, likewise, when you watch the movie, you can play your own personal game of make believe in which it is fictionally true that you're sad that Dumbledore has died. So that, Walton thinks, allows us to make sense of this weird paradox of fiction that we started off with at the beginning here, trying to figure out how it makes sense that we have emotional reactions to stuff we know does not exist. What we do when we watch a movie like Harry Potter is, well, we play this game of make-believe in which we make believe that Dumbledore dies, and so it is indeed a fictional truth that Dumbledore dies. And then we also play this other game of make-believe, this game of make-believe in which we make believe that we're sad about his death. So it is fictionally true that we're sad about Dumbledore dying, but we're not actually sad that Dumbledore has died. So we don't run into this weird problem that we started out with where we say, gosh, you really seem to be sad that Dumbledore died, but that doesn't make sense since you know that Dumbledore doesn't exist. So he, of course, hasn't actually died because he doesn't exist. You can say, oh, look, the premise of that problem just isn't the case. I'm not actually sad that Dumbledore has died. That's not actually true. I'm just make-believing that I'm sad that Dumbledore died. It's just fictionally true that I'm sad about that. Similarly, if you watch a scary movie like It, and it seems as though you're afraid of the clown, what Walton would say is, well, no, you're not actually afraid of that clown. After all, you know darn well that clown does not exist. It can't harm you. Nonetheless, what you're doing when you're watching that movie and you're gripping your seat and you're like grimacing and throwing your arms up in the air is you're making believe that you're scared of that clown. So it's fictionally true that you're scared of the clown. You're just not actually scared of the clown. So there's no like weird, paradox. It's perfectly sensible to realize that that clown doesn't exist and yet still make believe that you're scared of it. Just like it's perfectly sensible to realize that the doll you play with doesn't exist and yet still make believe that her name is Anne and she's going to a party tonight and she's best friends with Caroline the giraffe. All right, so in the next installment, we'll take a look at why we might think that this account is true, and you should also, in the discussion, say what you think. Has Walton actually solved the problem of the paradox of fiction here? Is it really true that when you're scared at a scary movie, you're just make-believing that you're scared? You're not actually sad. All right, or scared, that is. Okay, talk to you in a bit.